Okay, now that we understand what is the ideas of temperature, we understand idea of internal potential energy, internal kinetic energy, let's now talk about state changes. When I want to move from a solid state to a liquid state, we call this process melting. Okay, and if we want to move from a liquid state to the gaseous state, this is called boiling. Okay, so you can see, right, in order to move from a melting, from a solid to a liquid, the distance between the particles must increase. Okay, so this is the key thing in the melting process. Energy is required. Okay, so let me state down clearly. Energy is required for state change. Where does this energy come from? The energy will come from heating, right? So as I'm heating something, the energy is being supplied by a heat source. The heat source will then, the energy from this heat source will then be used to overcome the strong forces of attraction between the particles. Okay, so now the forces of attraction are overcome, they move further apart. So when they move further apart, what will happen to the internal potential energy? Okay, it will increase. So what happens is the energy that is supplied, okay, is being transferred into the internal potential energy of the particles. Same thing is happening during boiling. The particles in liquids are still close together, but in gases, the particles are far apart. So when we want to boil something, again, energy is required. From where? From a heat source. So the energy from the heat source is then used to overcome the forces of attraction once again between the particles so that they move further apart. So the particles move further apart. And then the internal potential energy of the particles will once again increase. Okay, so this is during state change. So you notice that during state change, we talk about internal changes in internal potential energy. What about the reverse process? When I want to move from a gas to a liquid, this process is called condensation. And from a liquid to a solid, this process is called freezing. Okay, or solidification, both are acceptable. So since energy is required during the melting and boiling process, the reverse actually happens. When I move from a gas to liquid, condensation occurs. Do I need energy? Actually, energy is released. How do I know? Because instead of them moving further apart, they're now moving closer. Okay, and if they move closer, the internal potential energy will decrease. Okay, so where do this energy go? It is released as heat energy. Okay, so this process happens during condensation. This process also happens during freezing or solidification.